Coming in Facebook, coming in YouTube. We're getting ready to start my show, Jimmy Rants. Thought I'd come in a little bit earlier than I normally do. Some days I get going with my work and the work just starts to flow. And so that's what this day was. I was up a little bit early today, but I'm up early every day. When you're an early riser and you hit the ground running, that's me. I'm one of those people. Hello, Debbie, come on in. Getting ready to start Jimmy Rants. But yeah, I checked my sleep stuff with the Oura Ring this morning, and it showed I had atrocious sleep. It showed that I was awake a lot of times, and I don't remember getting up times, but sometimes it shows that. Hello, Shirley. And so it dinged me for that. It dinged me for short sleep. It looks like I didn't get a lot of deep sleep. So yeah, my Oura Ring score this morning was horrible. But I feel good, so it's just kind of weird. Like sometimes that data is interesting in as much as it's accurate. But if it's not accurate, is it relevant? So I don't freak out if I get a bad sleep score and yet I feel good. I don't make a big deal about it. What's up, Joni? Thanks for being here. We're getting ready to start my show, Jimmy Rants, over on Instagram Live. I've got about 5 minutes before we get started, so plenty of time to just jibber jabber with you guys. I like to do this every once in a while. Come on a little bit early, just talk to you guys for a few minutes very casually. So yeah, so it's been an interesting year to say the least, and I don't think we've seen the worst of how this year's gone yet. I have a feeling these last few months, just buckle your seatbelt because it's about to get really, really weird. I just have this weird gut feeling that 2020 has not shocked us yet as much as it has. Candy says there's a live prophetess currently on the Keto Talk Facebook page right now. I tried to report. Well, I'll have to deal with her when I'm done because I'm on here now. I would have to end this to go deal with her. I don't know what a live prophetess means, but I will deal with it when I'm done. So hopefully she doesn't bring people into her cult. I don't know what a live prophetess is. What is that? So, what's up, Jonathan Shane? See, I see you're trolling me on my Facebook today since I took a picture of your cat showing his rear end on your Instagram Live yesterday. That was a lot of fun, man. Guys, you don't follow Jonathan Shane over on Instagram. He's Coach John something. You changed it recently, dude. So, my web guy, Hank Candy, said he's already taken care of it. So this is why I have people that work for me. So when I'm doing my stuff, they deal with stuff. See, I don't ever know what they're handling, and they just take care of it. If I notice it, I'll take care of it. But yeah. Hello, Norma. So yeah, Jonathan, go follow him. Coach John, help me out, Jonathan. What is your username over on Instagram at 7 a.m. Eastern time? If you're an early bird, definitely go check him out. He just does kind of a casual talk with you about all kinds of things, and sometimes he has on guests. I know our mutual friend Aaron Dupree, AD Keto, comes on there a lot. So. And Jonathan, you keep saying you want me on there. I'm up, dude. So just let me know when you want me to come on. So, morning early today. Yes, I'm always up early, Norma. I see you look at my stories over on Instagram. And so, yeah, you're an early riser as well. Good morning, Deborah. Thank you for being here. Shirley says, I don't normally say anything about my political beliefs, but I put it out there on your post today. I haven't looked back since. I'm a little scared. No. So what she's talking about is today I decided to do a social experiment with all the vitriol that's out there about this upcoming presidential election. I thought, okay, let's set up a kind of some rules, and let's see if people can tell me why they are for either Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump. And so it's not political. I wasn't expressing any political belief. I just said, I want to know what you believe about one or the other that makes you want to vote for them. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting experiment. And the rule was you're not allowed to disparage be snarky about, have passive aggressive language towards, any kind of opposition language to the other candidate. Hello, Tracy. Thanks for being here. So it's been fascinating because for the most part, you guys, I'm shocked. Everybody's kind of playing by the rules. There was a few people that they said the nice thing about their candidate and then they just got a little bit of a dig in at the other person, and I had to delete it because I said I will delete any posts that don't follow these rules. And so I unfortunately did that, but it is the rules. Just say who you're for and why you're for them. That's it. Because you're not seeing that elsewhere. You go everywhere else online, all you're seeing is the vitriol, and it kind of goes along with what I'm going to talk about here today. A really fascinating kind of topic about the whole idea of agreeing to disagree. But if you haven't seen it yet, go on over to my any of my social media pages today. And yeah, I just basically said, okay, tell me why you are for either the former vice president or the current president in the upcoming election. And yeah, people have been very nice. Instagram, totally nice. I think I had one comment where somebody was just real ugly to one of the candidates and I deleted it, but all the rest of those have stayed. Over here on Facebook, it's been a little more contentious-ish, but nobody's been super duper ugly like I fully expected. There was one person not from America that went on a rant about one of the candidates that it was just disgusting. Like that's not the spirit of what I'm doing here. So, so those were all deleted as I promised that I would do. All right, guys, let's get on with the show here today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, YouTube, for being here as well. As always, Facebook, you can share this on your personal page or on any group page that you are a part of. So feel free to share. It's an interesting one, especially in this climate we're in where people are disagreeing and butting heads. This is going to be an interesting one for people to kind of think about. And I love doing these kinds of shows where I make you think about the way we do things, the way we interact with each other. And this is going to be one such show. So you guys ready? All right, here we go. I'm going to talk about why agreeing to disagree isn't what you think it is. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, you can engage live just like Beth and Nana and Craven Keto and Mike and Ketosaurus Jack. So many people coming in right now. Thank you so much for being here today. We do go live 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. So thank you for being here. We also simulcast live over here on my Facebook page. So thank you guys for being here. We also simulcast over on my YouTube channel. So thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay right here on Instagram. Got a lot of people that watch the replays of my Jimmy Rant shows on IGTV, so thank you for that, you guys. We also air the replay over on YouTube. What's funny is when I point to YouTube, I'm pointing to the live YouTube, but when people watch it on replay, this is the YouTube feed, and so go watch it on YouTube. Just type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. And then today, you guys, we have a special bonus episode of the Living La Vida Low Carb show being over on there. We call it a Jimmy Rants bonus episode. So today's guest that you'll be able to watch on YouTube is Amanda Decker. She's a registered nurse in rural Tennessee. So it's a little small town in Tennessee where she is a nurse. And she talked about how she tries to talk to them about low-carb ketogenic diets and how they embrace it with the financial challenges and all the rest. So go check out that bonus episode. It's over there. As soon as you're done watching this here today, it's over there on YouTube. It also airs on the Living La Vida Low Carb Show podcast, LLVLC.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then finally, pop on over to the official website for Jimmy Rants. It is JimmyRants.com. And once you're there, you can see all the past episodes there. and it gives you a way to support me. If you like what I do here and you want to keep this going and support my work, I have both a Patreon page and a PayPal link. Both of those would be ways that you could donate to the cause, and any donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. Okay, you guys, I wanted to talk about a topic here today that in this current climate we are in, where there is such disagreement over things like masks, things like how we're handling COVID-19, things like the race relations stuff, things like the presidential election. All of these things, you have great disagreement on the part of people having discussions. And I am becoming more and more convinced that consensus building, trying to find areas of agreement, that's all out the window. And it's unfortunate because I remember growing up in an America where people did discuss things and they openly disagreed about things, but there wasn't this kind of personal attachment of the disagreement. And that's where we see things go crazy, because somebody will say something, just take a position on something, and then someone will come in and say, well, no, your da 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 derogatory statement about them personally, because here's what I believe. Now, had the person only said, well, that's interesting, thank you for your position and what you're saying, here's what I believe, let's talk about it a little bit and let's have this kind of conversation. And it's fascinating when you kind of pull away the vitriol, you pull away the personal attacks, how much you can actually have a conversation. And unfortunately, it's hard to do that in this day and age. Before we came on the air here, I was telling Facebook and YouTube, today on all of my social media pages, including right here on Instagram, I'm conducting a social experiment where I put up a meme that says, tell me what you like and what's good about either President Trump or Vice President Biden, why you support them. And the caveat was, you're not allowed to say anything derogatory. You're not allowed to use any passive aggressive language. You're not allowed to disparage in any way. This is all about tell me what you believe in the candidate you support. And I fully expected, guys, that nobody would follow the rules and it would just be a you-know-what fest. But I've been pleasantly surprised. So far, most people have been pretty respectful. I've had a few. In fact, right before I came on Jimmy Rants, there was some guy that just went on some rant, really bad rant about one of the candidates, and I just went, delete. Because I said I'm going to delete any comment that doesn't play by these rules. But it's kind of refreshing because most of the internet right now is just this loud pissing match. And I don't think that gets us anywhere. So if you're just joining us, guys, we're about to talk about a very important subject that I think is commonly believed, but I think does more harm than good. And it's this whole idea of agreeing to disagree. Now, I remember growing up, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree. And it sounds so good at face value, doesn't it? It sounds like when you agree to disagree, well, we have our differences, but we'll just agree to disagree and move on. And it sounds like it could be a peaceable resolution. It sounds like it could just be a nice way of getting out of a conversation. But I have an article that says agreeing to disagree is not what you think it is. And I thought this was definitely worthy of a Jimmy Rants. Have you guys heard that your whole life? Like, well, if you disagree with someone and you reach this impasse, you just agree to disagree. Now, keep in mind, I realize there are very strong ideologues that no matter what you say, you're not going to convince them to come off of their position. So I get that, and in that case, I suppose agreeing to disagree would be a good thing. But see, I'm making the case, don't be that strong of an ideologue. No matter what you believe, always have your mind open to at least hearing what other people have to say, which is what's made some of the censorship that's been out there on social media this year so disheartening. It's like, okay, you just took away an ability to have a conversation about whatever that thing that got censored was. And who got to decide that that was wrong information, not worthy of being seen, and everybody else's information is correct? And so that's kind of another challenge in all this. But agreeing to disagree sounds good. It sounds like, oh, you're coming to a resolution and no, you're not resolving anything. You're basically saying, well, you're not being reasonable, I'm not being reasonable, so therefore we're just going to agree to disagree. And they get into some of that here in this article I printed out. And you're basically kicking the can down the road. So what happens when those same two topics come up again and you're butting heads again? At some point, you kind of have to have these discussions. I guess one of the big ones in 2020 has been mask versus no mask. And you got the people on the mask side that just, oh, you need to follow it, it's going to stop the spread. You're killing people because you're not wearing a mask, da, 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 da. And then you got the people on the no mask side, oh, I want to breathe. This is a fake pandemic. I don't want to be breathing in my own oxygen. I'm more apt to get sick wearing a mask. Then you have the butting of the heads. And at some point, somebody says, well, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree. Well, no, what you're doing at that point is you're saying, we're going to kick the can down the road, and nothing ever changes. Why can't we have open conversations where someone who believes in a mask takes away all the personal, like think about every single interaction you see online. It always comes down to, when it goes awry, it always comes down to somebody attacks the other person at a personal level. They say something derogatory to or about them. They question their character. They question their integrity. And all of those things are an affront to stoking an emotional response. And when people respond emotionally, they can't be rational. So I say, you get to that point, don't allow personal attacks to come in and just stick to the facts. You could actually have meaningful conversations, which is what about in this article. So let's get to this. This is from a blog, charlesandchris.net. I think Charles and Chris are like podcasters. And so they had this article, agreeing to disagree and other strategies for shutting down meaningful dialogue. So one of the topics we discussed in a recent podcast is between lessons on social media etiquette and musings on the proper buoyancy of a matzo ball was barriers to interfaith dialogue. So while there are many barriers to having meaningful interfaith dialogue, so they must be faith-based podcasters, there are two surefire ways to shut down any dialogue on any topic at all. See if this sounds familiar. When you tell somebody that it's just a moot point. So if somebody makes a statement and then a response is, well, it's just a moot point, they're basically dismissing it. And does that go anywhere? Like, okay, just wear a mask, stupid. Well, it's a moot point. Did anything get resolved in that? No. Telling someone it's a moot point is basically giving them the middle finger. And that doesn't get anywhere either. Because usually it's a moot point and then the next response is, well, no, it's valid because, well, and it just becomes this like bigger thing than it needs to be. So that's one way that people dismiss things they don't agree with. And then the other one is what we're talking about here today, agree to disagree. When you say, well, I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree, you're basically telling them to STFU. You are. And does that accomplish anything? Because who's to say that topic won't come up again, because you know it will. And then you're right back where you started from. Why not have those conversations? There are many variations on these themes, but the agree to disagree is the most insidious one. Thanks to Rick Springfield not telling Jesse's girl he loves her because the point is probably moot, Most people believe that a moot point is one that's not even worth talking about. Can I tell you, when you say something is a moot point, you're basically invalidating that person's opinion. You're basically saying you're not worth hearing the words come out of your mouth. Like, that's horrible. Okay, you don't agree with a position, but you don't say it's a moot point. You don't. And you don't get to the point where you say, I agree to disagree. Okay, great. You disagree. Have the conversation. What exactly do you disagree with? And have it on a very neutral ground. I know this is so foreign, such a foreign concept to want to have like real debate and real discussion, because in this day and age of social media screaming at each other, you're not really going to get very far if you say, well, let's just agree to disagree, because we're not going to get anywhere. Have the conversation, because in social media, it's not just the two people talking. It's actually people watching the dialogue. And in fact, on that post I talked about today, and if you're just joining us, we're talking about this concept of agreeing to disagree, and I'm making the argument it's not the peaceable resolution that it might seem. On that post today where I said, say what you like about either Mr. Biden or Mr. Trump for the upcoming election, what are you for with them? And so on Facebook, something magical happened. Somebody presented the case for one of the candidates. And then somebody responded, oh, well, what about this and this? And I have my concerns. You know, can we have the discussion of why you like this candidate over that candidate? And then that person, that original person that posted, came back and was very rational and listed out like all the things. No vitriol whatsoever, no agreeing to disagree. It was beautiful. And it's like, oh my gosh, like all it takes is someone giving a space for people to have these conversations. And then they have them. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we had a social media platform that not only didn't censor information, that's a big one, but then encouraged people to have civil conversations and monitor it, that if somebody becomes ugly, you remove those comments, so that it only keeps the discussion of the ideas. And that way it will self-police itself, that if you know you say something negative or personal, it's going to get deleted. Now that's going to be very meticulous to have moderators that would do all that, but that would be really cool. And then you keep the focus on the conversation. So it's been beautiful to watch it on that post I did today. Again, go check out my latest post on social media, where I tell people, tell me what you like about one or the other candidates for president, and only say positive things, no negative or snarky or passive aggressive things. It's been wonderful. Like it's a social experiment that is going better than my wildest dreams that it would go. So if you haven't participated, go participate on one of my pages today. It's all over the internet. Declaring a moot point is the attempt to mute the conversation. Yeah. It's almost a middle finger and shut up, basically. This point is so unimportant, the thinking goes, that we don't even need to talk about it. There is no greater sign of disrespect than for somebody to say, yeah, it's a moot point. It's not worth even talking about. Why would you even bring that up? Such a moot point. It's an irrelevant point. You, peasants, don't matter for daring to put that out there. Nothing, however, could be further from the truth. A point is considered moot when, even though the decision has no real-life consequences, the matter is important enough for discussion and debate. It's kind of like like some of these people get into the superheroes. I wonder who would win between a battle of Superman and Batman. Like, I've seen that kind of debate. Now, it has no real-life consequences. But it's important enough to those people that are into those things to have that debate, and it's fun for people to have well, you know, Superman has superpowers, and obviously he'd be able to overpower a human who's just in a rubber suit. So anyway, you'd have all those conversations, and you know, You could literally say, well, it's a moot point because neither one of them are real. But it's still fun to have the conversation. In a moot court, for example, no one goes to jail at the end of the trial. I had one of those in high school. I took a civics class in high school, and we did a moot court where we did a trial, and it was fun. And people played the lawyers, people played the witnesses. I remember I was a witness. I was a restaurant owner, and I was one of the suspects in the crime. Anyways, it was a lot of fun. But there was no consequences. Whatever happened at the end didn't matter, whatever the verdict was, because it was truly a moot court. The legal and constitutional issues involved in the case merit serious public discourse, as they are fundamental to a society based on the rule of law. So the point of the class, the civics class, was we went through that moot court, that moot trial, so that we could see how justice works. Not to adjudicate something that actually happened, but to say, okay, here's where the circumstance would be that adjudication would take place and how you would learn the different processes along the way, what's allowed, what's not allowed, and that kind of thing. Of course, this application of the expression a moot point comes with from a time when debate and public discourse were considered to be noble and valuable as a way of reaching decisions and not just an opportunity to humiliate someone by using flashy linguistic jiu-jitsu. That's true. Like used to, it was a value that we all loved, having a healthy debate of ideas in an open forum without any personalities getting their panties in a wad. Like that's the thing that's been the most disheartening about what has happened in our culture. Certainly the anonymity of the internet has made this worse than it's ever been before, but used to in our culture, you could have these conversations that you disagree with someone about, and then you could go out afterwards and have a beer. I remember in the 1992 election, where George H.W. Bush was running against Bill Clinton, and Mary Madeline was the campaign advisor for Bush, and then James Carville was the campaign manager for Bill Clinton. And could not have been two more diametrically opposed people as far as ideology. You want to know what happened at the end of that campaign? Bill Clinton got elected president, but you want to know what happened between Mary Madeline and James Carville? They fell in love and got married. A staunch conservative Republican married a left-wing liberal Democrat. And in this day and age, I don't know if you could fall in love with someone that's totally the opposite of you now. Whatever it was, they were attracted to each other. I guess the passion for what they believed in. But it wasn't that they saw the issues that they disagreed with and made them personal with each other. They knew it was just ideology. But somehow their love for each other overcame that ideology. It's kind of an interesting story. If you've never looked that up before, go look up Mary Madeline and James Carville. Definitely on the opposite ends of belief system, and yet somehow they fell in love and got married. So the next time someone tells you that's a moot point, you should respond with, why, yes. Yes, it is. And that's why we need to keep on talking about it. Kind of interesting. All right, so let's get to this whole idea of agreeing to disagree, because it's highly problematic. And again, if you joined us late, people like to say, let's just agree to disagree when they reach an impasse in a conversation. And people think that's a peaceable way to resolve an issue. It doesn't resolve anything. All it does is kicks the can down the road. So it might seem to resolve it, but it actually makes it worse. And I'm reading from an article that's making the case, let's don't agree to disagree. Let's have that conversation. Let's dig deeper. Let's get our hands dirty and kind of come up with peaceable, things we do agree on. I'll give you a hard example of this. So when I first started blogging back in 2005, I encountered a lot of negativity from the vegan community. Obviously, I was talking about low carb diets, talking about eating meat, healthy fats, and blah, blah, blah. And I remember hearing from Dr. Dean Ornish. He was one of the big low fat guys. He's still out there, but he's getting old. But at the time, he had some of the best selling books in the low fat vegan kind of movement. So, Dean Ornish, I asked him if we can have a conversation. This was before I had my podcast, and if I could interview him on my blog. And so I did. And so I sent him a list of questions, and he said, well, can we talk on the phone and do the interview that way rather than typing it out? I'm like, okay. I had literally never done a podcast before. And so I'm talking to him, and it was my very first interview I ever did. Before I even had a podcast, I did this interview with Dr. Dean Ornish. I remember I was on a traditional landline phone because cell phones weren't as ubiquitous then. And I remember I had a tape recorder right next to the speakerphone, and that's how I got the interview. And then I listened back to that entire interview. It was probably an hour and a half long interview, and transcribed the whole thing so I could put it on my blog. And when I printed it all out and put it all on there, I decided to, since I had listened to all these words and had written all of them out, why don't I look through the entire transcript of the interview and let's see what I agree with what Dr. Ornish had to say. And I literally wrote a follow-up post that said, here are the areas, 20 different areas where I agree with Dr. Dean Ornish about nutrition. And I remember at the time I put that out there, I didn't think anything of it, but I had so many people write to me and go, wow, this is so refreshing because vegans don't like low carb dieters. Low carb dieters really don't like the vegans and the low fat people. But here you are trying to bridge the gap, trying to bring the two sides together, trying to see what you do agree on, not agreeing to disagree. Well, you like your low fat veganism, I like my high fat low carbism, and nobody gets anywhere. So when we found these common areas of agreement, I tried to reach out to him again and say, hey, can you kind of say what you agree with about the low carb? He never did, but people were heralding, at least I attempted to have that conversation. And it was profound for me. It reminded me that I didn't need to be an ideologue with what I do, and I've tried not to ever be an ideologue. I always keep an open mind, always try to have these conversations and cultivate these discussions, because if you're not discussing, you're very much propagandized or have the very strong propensity to be propagandized. Agreeing to disagree is perhaps one of the greatest conversation stoppers ever. And I'm guilty. Well, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. At some point in a conversation, when someone just can't argue or doesn't want to argue any further their points, well, we're just going to have to agree to disagree. That's a literal STFU. And so if you STFU somebody, it's not very nice. And it doesn't solve anything. Saying you want to agree to disagree allows you to end what might be an uncomfortable conversation in what appears to be an amicable fashion. However, when you say, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree, it is both a cop-out and intellectually disingenuous. So they bring up two issues with saying, well, let's just agree to disagree. One, it's based on the assumption that any conversation has to be a zero-sum interaction, that there's a winner and a loser, that the goal is to either agree with that person or get them to agree with you. Oh, like can we have the nuance? Can we have the discussion where you don't have to totally believe one thing or totally believe the other thing? We see this in the political realm right now. Well, if you're not for wearing a mask, you must be a Trump supporter. Oh, if you believe that COVID-19 is real, you must be a Biden supporter. And I'm just like, I'm over it. Please. We don't need the ideologue to take over. What if you like some things that one side has to say and some things the other side have to say, what do you call that person that is a hybrid of those beliefs? There's someone trying to be smart about this. They're definitely not agreeing to disagree. They're willing to have those conversations. So there is no zero-sum interaction, but people think there is. What we have here is a failure to communicate as a classic example of the I-it relationship, and a chance for me to riff for 300 words on Martin Buber and the importance of seeking the I-thou relationship. I have no idea what he's talking about there. What we also have is an implicit bias for the inherent binary opposition of the zero-sum and a rejection of the more nuanced Rogerian argument. In the Rogerian argument, the goal is not to convince the other of your rightness of your position and thus persuade them to change, but rather to persuade the other to acknowledge that at least there is validity to your position. This acknowledgement does not require the other to abandon their position. Oh, can you imagine if we have these conversations where somebody makes their point, then somebody says, I can see why you believe that, and I certainly see it as a valid argument. Now, here's my argument of the same issue, and it's a different position. And then that person says, yeah, that's definitely a valid argument as well. And when you acknowledge the other person's argument is valid, that's when the magic of the conversation starts to begin. Because right now, if it's not your position, people are totally invalidating it. It has to be my position or no position. And again, I'll go back to the mask issue. If someone says, you know, I have trouble breathing when I wear a mask, I get lightheaded, I just feel like I'm gonna pass out, and that's a problem. I'd rather breathe the fresh air and take my chances with COVID-19 and do all the things to make sure people around me are safe by staying physically distanced and da-da-da. And then if the person who's pro-mask says, you know, I can see that as a valid argument if that's how you're feeling and that's what's happening. Now, my concern is, well, you should be wearing a mask even if it's uncomfortable, it's for the greater good. In the end, it's probably gonna be helpful. And then the no mask person says, well, I support that argument that if you feel like it's gonna be helpful, that you should be wearing the mask. So you see where you can have that positive dialogue rather than the just put on a damn mask. That gets nowhere. If you've written put on a damn mask to somebody on social media, go and delete those comments because you're a nincompoop. Or if you're a no mask person and you tell people that they're killing themselves and wearing a mask, you're a nincompoop as well. Have the conversations. Whatever happened to that? That used to be the norm in our culture. While all of this so far can be attributed to a lack of rhetorical sophistication on the part of the people talking, the issue of agree to disagree is reflective of a deeper problem in our discourse. Declare yourself willing to agree to disagree is a confession that you came to the conversation with a closed mind. Oh my goodness, have you stopped to think about it? All you people that have said, well, I guess we're just gonna have to agree to disagree. Do you realize you went into that conversation not having any inkling whatsoever of wanting to consider anything else but other than your belief? And when you do that, when you come into a conversation only wanting to be heard and not to listen, it's going to become all too obvious, and then inevitably, I guess we're going to have to agree to disagree comes out your mouth, and you basically tipped your hand that you already came into it with a closed mind. Not good. You are confessing an unwillingness to entertain, even for a moment, that there could be validity in some, if any, of the other's position, and there is a very pragmatic reason for this. Anybody want to guess what the reason is? You want to preserve your own ego. Ego gets in the way of so many things in life. We can be very egotistical sometimes as human beings. And when you humble yourself and you're willing to put aside your own personal beliefs to hear another human being express their concerns and their beliefs, again, I go back to, if we cut off all of the negative personal attacks that people say to one another, you would reduce so much of the conflict that you see online. Most of it is predicated solely in people getting their panties in a wad because somebody said something ugly about them. You're talking to one of the people that gets the most ugly stuff thrown at him on a daily basis. So talk to the hand if you're worried about that. What I do when people are ugly to me and have disagreements with me about whatever, I always go back in kind. Like, I'm kind back to them, not in kind in terms of responding back ugly to them. I respond back kindly and softly and inquisitively, especially when I started writing about some of the race stuff recently, and people, oh, you're such a racist, you're showing your white privilege, and da-da-da. Okay, thank you for that. Now, let's talk about the issues that I brought up. You know, and then people don't want to have those conversations, but they definitely want to hurl names at you. It's at that point you realize, okay, if they're not going to be willing to talk about the issues, then there's nothing you can do. At that point, you are, I guess, virtually agreeing to disagree, but not saying it verbally. Don't say, well, I guess we're just going to agree to disagree. Try to have the conversation, even if they're being ugly towards you. I do. And I think sometimes you open people up. Oh, wow, you're much more open-minded than I heard you were. And I'm like, who told you I wasn't open-minded? I always try to be. American philosopher and psychologist William James, in his theory of pragmatism, explains that we hold in our minds paradigms of how the world operates and of our place in this world. When we receive information through any of our senses, we try to match it up to that existing paradigm. If the information does not match what we already believe and have as our paradigm, we must either reject the new information or restructure the paradigm that we believe in just so we can accommodate this new information. In some cases, this will require the complete rejection of an existing paradigm and replace it with a totally new one. The decision, James argues, is based on how much ego is invested in your existing paradigm. The greater the ego involvement, his theory goes, the more likely the new information will just be rejected and the old paradigm reinforced. Like, so many people have beliefs, and then you ask them, why do you believe what you believe? And inevitably it comes back, we just believe. And I'm going, no. Where did the belief come from? Why are you so staunch in that position? Why do you believe that? And honestly, guys, I'm shocked at how many people can't tell you why they believe what they believe about certain things. I just believe. And I'm going, that doesn't explain it. And if you just believe, do you have room in your mind to open up and have conversations and hearing new information that challenges your belief system? What do you do with that? And what they're saying is, William James said, is people are so entrenched in their belief being a part of who they are that they're willing to reject anything, even if the new information is incredibly valid and probably under any other circumstance would be convincing. They just outright reject it. From this point of view, we can see that even the slightest amount of validity in the other person's position poses an existential threat to us. If even 1/1000th of their position might possibly be true, our entire worldview and construction of self will come crashing down. It's just better to agree to disagree and close down that discussion rather than take the risk. Right now, you've got people like that looking at this presidential election, just like that. And both sides have those things that even 1/1000th of their position could be true. It will send your own worldview down. This one person, oh, if he gets elected, it's the end of the United States as we know it. I've literally heard that from both sides. Both sides say, if the other guy gets elected, it's the end of the United States as we know it. Well, it can't be true for both. Could be true for neither. It can't possibly be true for both. It's so weird. So, in that case, better to agree to disagree and close down this discussion rather than taking that risk. That's why people come to that conclusion I guess we're just going to have to agree to disagree. Agreeing to disagree now is a barrier to meaningful dialogue in two ways. Listen to this, guys. First, it ends the conversation in a pseudo-friendly manner. Ooh. Think about it. Well, I guess we're just going to agree to disagree. I suppose it's a soft landing to get out of a conversation, but agree to disagree, you're okay, you leave amicably-ish. But what happens when the issue comes up again? You're going to clash again. I'll tell you what, with this race relation stuff, I have certain people that when I write about it, I know I'm going to hear from them every single time. And at some point in every single one of those posts, and I start having the interactions with them back and forth, these specific people I'm thinking of, there will come a point, well, oh, you're just, I guess we're just gonna, it's a moot point what you're saying, so we agree to disagree. And it always ends there. Whereas I want to still have the conversation, but it always ends with this other person, well, we're going to agree to disagree because this is my thing and you're not believing what I'm saying. No, I'm hearing you. I'm just not agreeing with you. But that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person. We just have difference of philosophy. But then it comes up again, and that same person is right back again. So we agreed to disagree until it was time to fight again. And he always wanted to fight. I just wanted to have conversations and look at facts and and it's become a very personal thing to him, and that's cool. If that's personal to him, I'm not certainly gonna silence him or anything, and I definitely don't ever delete anything he posts. I engage with him, but I do wish we could engage without it becoming this like ugliness, but it does tend to go that way. The second way, but more importantly, that agreeing to disagree is a barrier to meaningful dialogue is in as much as it means you were never in the dialogue to find any meaning in the first place. This is the thing. If we're going to have conversations, don't go into a conversation saying, I'm going to convince them that my way is the highway, and if they don't believe me, I'm going to keep hammering and hammering and hammering and hammering my points, never listening to anything that they have to say because everything they have to say is completely invalid. You know people like that? They literally just stay, they're a one-trick pony. They stay on their talking points. They don't want to hear what you have to say. Even if you make a compelling argument they haven't heard before, all they're going to say is, well, that's what you believe, but here's my belief. And I think if we acknowledge good things on both sides of issues and have those conversations and kind of come to I can see why you feel that way and why you believe that way, and there's definitely validity to that. Now, here's my position. And if you could get them to say, yeah, I could see why you have that feeling and why you believe that way, and it definitely has validity. There is the flashpoint by which you can have meaningful conversation. But 99% of conversations never go there. They just don't. It's my way or the highway. And that gets nobody anywhere. We will never find common ground if neither party is willing to entertain the idea that there is even a modicum of validity in the other person's view. How then can we find any meaning in our interaction? How can we ever learn from each other and grow? We can't. We can't. And this is something, guys, it's not new. Let's not pretend like this just started happening in 2020. This has been happening a little while, and I think the advent of the internet has certainly made it a lot more prevalent than it's ever been before. But I want you to go into conversations with people, especially virtually online, with the full intention of not trying to convince them of your side of things on whatever you're talking about, but to totally hear them, listen to them, yes, have your core value of what you believe, and embrace what you believe and express it in a very non-threatening, factual kind of way. And then when someone responds back, even if they're ugly to you, this is going to be the hard part, because once somebody says something ugly, then there's this visceral reaction within you to want to go back ugly. When I get ugly, guys, I go super kind. Like I'm not ugly to anybody, but when somebody's extremely ugly towards me, I'm always very respectful and kind back to them. And I state my position, and I try to have that conversation with them. And some people, they just won't. They'll just go off and they'll continue to be ugly. And if someone's ugly just for ugly's sake, I block, delete, and move on with my life. But if someone comes back and goes, oh, you want to have a conversation, because nobody wants to have those conversations. So you will stand out if you're willing to at least try to put in the effort to say, all right, help me understand. Like what happened on that Facebook post today that I did with the tell me who you like in the presidential election, and just stay positive and no negative. Somebody stated their position for one of the candidates, and somebody said, oh, that's interesting because I had not heard this and this and this. Make your argument for why you like that. And they've had a nice conversation, civil conversation. And it is possible, even in 2020 on social media, that you don't have to agree to disagree, because that really doesn't get you anywhere. It's not a peaceable resolution like you think it is. You can have conversations, and you can be willing to validate the position of the other person, even while you still hold true to what you believe. You don't have to negate someone else's belief just because you don't believe it. Validate it. They validate you back, and there is where the magic of meaningful conversation will take place. All right, let's see what you guys have to say. We're going to go to Instagram first, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. Let's see what you have to say about this one. Jack says, literally just happened to me this morning, and I'm reluctant to respond. Oh, so somebody came at you kind of ugly, Jackson. So yeah, respond. Will you respond and do what I was just talking about? Like, be kind about it, and state your facts and kind of validate anything that you see as valid in their argument. Yes, they were personal. I don't think people's mamas grew them up very well to know how to have discourse in a public forum like social media. But that's where you just kind of stay chill and roll with it. Just know that that's the way some people are. Here's the funny thing. When I've done this many times now, people come at me hard, and they just blast me. I guess because I'm a public figure, they think they can just do that. But when I respond back kindly and softly and gently and not lash back, because I think most of them expect me to lash back, sometimes magic opens up and people just start going, oh wow, you want to have a conversation. And so try that. I want to know what happens, Jack. So I think that would be really, really interesting. All right, Instagram looks like, oh, Jack's had another comment. It's like the red pill or the blue pill. Do you want to accept new information or continue to live the life you know? Yeah, that's a good analogy from the Matrix. Some people like having new information and assimilating it and shifting their beliefs, and other people are just blissfully ignorant to stay with what I don't know won't hurt me, kind of, so to speak. Jack said, I did respond that way and also stated that I'm happy to debate, but they're not there for a fight or mudslinging. That's the way to do it. Just let your intentions be known that, okay, let's have a conversation, but I'm not going to have a pissing match with you. All right, thank you, Instagram. Let's pop over here now to my Facebook page. What's up, Facebook? See what you have to say about this one. Deborah says, yes, validation and acknowledgement. Such good points. Yeah, I mean, when you acknowledge someone's point of view, you basically say you mean something. You basically tell them that you value their input. And I think that's what's missing in a lot of these conversations is people feel so invalidated and feel like that they don't matter, that then they feel like they have to lash out at that point. But when you validate someone, tell them they do matter and acknowledge the contribution to the conversation that they're having, and then you present your side, yes, might be opposed to their position, but you present your side and say, what do you think about this, and da 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 da. Then you can have conversations, and then they validate you and acknowledge you. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Again, very, very rare. Um, but it is something that can move the conversation along. All right, thank you, Facebook. Let me pop over here to YouTube, seeing a bunch of comments coming over here. See what you guys have to say. Deborah says, if people would stop and do more listening instead of wanting to be right and win the fight, they might actually learn something. Deborah, hear, hear. That's the theme song of what we're talking about here today. Walker says, I agree, we disagree. I have always said that instead. So instead of agree to disagree, you say you respond back, I agree, we do disagree. I like that, Walker. Shirley says, I was talking about the updated CDC numbers and was dismissed by someone instead of being listened to, with them saying if anyone gets sick, they feel bad. I didn't see them wearing a mask last flu season. Walker says, I believe everything that I hear on Jimmy Moore's podcast. No, don't believe everything you hear on my podcast. Hannah says, wow, such a timely message, eloquently spoken. I hope people take this message to heart. I really hope so too, Hannah. Like, my heart is for people to get along and to grow in their life. And you can actually grow if you keep a closed mind. Shirley says, my sister and I don't agree on many things. I've always just left it alone, agree to disagree. Now we aren't anywhere near as close because I try to avoid these topics. And that's a shame. Shirley does say, I try to find common points of agreement because agreeing to disagree doesn't work. It ruined the relationship. It does. It just kicks the can down the road. You never solve anything. Hannah says, my dad has changed his political and philosophical opinions over the last few years. So now we're polar opposites morally, but we always have the conversations and hear each other out. We gift each other books and then discuss them. We're willing to say that we hadn't considered a position before, and are willing to change the opinion, or say, I don't agree, but I definitely see where you're coming from. And that's where you're doing that validation and that acknowledgement that the other side has value. Like, the last thing we want to tell somebody is, your opinion doesn't count. Your point of view is irrelevant to me. You want to make somebody feel that small, that's the best way to do it. Is just totally dismiss them. Guys, I get dismissed on a daily basis by people, and most people who haven't even ever met me before. They'll say things like, well, you don't have any say in the nutritional health space because you can't get your own health in order. In fact, just this morning, somebody on YouTube actually posted a comment. Well, if keto and fasting was so good, why have you not been able to lose weight? I've watched you over the past 10 years. You never lose weight. You just stay the same. You're getting progressively worse and worse, and you're just a disgrace to the community. And what was the other thing? There was one other thing she said. Oh, I'm so discouraged watching your progress because it's not a very good look for the keto community. Okay, that's nice, right? So I respond back, well, weight loss is not the only thing I'm focused on. Thank you for your comment. I would prefer to be healthy, and I'm spectacularly healthy, vibrant, and all the things. And I'm not about weight loss. I don't promote weight loss. Weight loss is a nice thing as a side effect of getting healthy, but I'm not promoting that. So I was very much attacked in that comment. But I didn't respond in kind. I just put the focus on what my belief system was. Haven't heard back from her yet, but I deal with that kind of thing literally all the time. Now, it would be easy for me to just say, well, I agree to disagree and just move on. That didn't resolve anything. Maybe I made her think today that her presupposition that everything about your health has to be about what your weight loss goals are. Maybe I made her think, perhaps for the first time, that maybe there's other ways to quantify someone's health other than just looking at weight. So it's a real world example of exactly what I was talking about here today, but agree to disagree. It's not really what you think it is. And hopefully you don't use that phrase again and you actually try to have those meaningful conversations. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me right here, Instagram, at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so always be here, and I'll always be here as well, unless I tell you otherwise. We also simulcast on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay. It's going to go right up on IGTV as soon as this is over, so go check it out there. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Finally, bonus episode over on YouTube, by the way. Amanda Decker. She's a registered nurse in rural Tennessee. And she's my guest today on the Living La Vida Low Carb show. So we've been posting the videos of those interviews as a Jimmy Rants bonus episode. So go watch that over at YouTube. And then finally, pop on over to JimmyRants.com, the official website for this here show. And while you're there, you can see all the past episodes. And if you like what I do and you like these encouraging kinds of information that I share on this show, definitely consider supporting my Patreon page or giving a one-time donation over at PayPal, and any amount would be greatly, greatly appreciated. All right, guys, that's it for now for Jimmy Rants. We'll see you again tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern. See ya. All right. So I have an interview coming up at 1 p.m. Eastern today with a guy named Paul Ralston. He's a medical doctor. So going to be interviewing him here just over an hour from now. And yeah, nothing much else on the books. I did have, I always have stuff to do. So it's not like, okay, I'm done with my day. No. I've been up pretty early. What was I up at? 3 o'clock today. And so I always have stuff to do, but I start early enough that by the time I get to this point in my day, I'm well past over half of my day being over. So thank you guys for being here today. We'll see you again soon. Bye.